thank God for everything, and we're studying that. You know, last week we were talking about uh, the word come. We used erkomai, and it's just like a totally different thing today. I'm just telling you what we did last week. Why did Jesus came? Why he came? The kingdom come. When he's coming back again, and he'll be coming back. And we also touched on him fighting for us, and all we got to do is hold our peace because he's going to fight for us. And that's what was that? Exodus had it written there somewhere. I think it was 14:14. Look at that real quick, and about him fighting for us. I'll just look at it real quick here. I think that's what it is. Exodus. We use this as like a springboard verse for the end of our study. It's like the last 5 minutes of the study. Exodus 14:14. The Lord shall fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. That's it. That's all we got to do. Hold our peace. Let him do it. Everything that he's doing, and we don't worry about a thing here. But this is today. I kind of like slipped into bound, being in prison. That's kind of like where it went off. It's not like the bind word dio and luo. That's the major one, dio. But we're not going to get into that. That's dio. So when you got to bind, and he talks about binding and loosing. This is dio. That's the main verb of this stem here, and there's like 15 different words that come off of this with dio this, dio that, and we'll get into some of them, but we're really not going to get into the binding and loosing. It's more like being bound and being in prison and being in chains. And we are bound, So I'm going to start with a few definitions and see where that usually takes us somewhere. But this is what I had up earlier. The 1195 in the Greek is desmenuo. It means to bind, and there's two verses here: bind or put in chains, to bound up together. He says in Matthew 23:4, for they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders. But they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. And he's talking about the false teachers, the Pharisees, and these Sadducee people who are laying heavy things on people, and they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. And then in Acts 22:4, he says, and I persecuted this way to the death. Paul was talking about what he did to the Christians before he was struck down on the Damascus Road. He says, binding them and delivering them into prisons, both men and women. So he was doing that. He was binding. He was desmulo. And where was he delivering them to? Delivering them to prisons. And that's what we're going to look at, some of that too. That's another word that we have in this study. It's fulake, means a prison or a guard or a watch or imprisonment. And it goes off into a couple other words. We'll look at that later. But another one of these is 1196, and that's desmio. And in Luke 8:29, he says, for he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man, for oft times it had caught him, and he was kept bound with chains and in fetters, and he brake the bands and was driven out of the devil into the wilderness. And I also jumped off with this, and I looked up all of these words that have to do with binding with the chains. It's 254. It's halusis. It means chain or bonds. And then I looked up fetters, which is 3976. That's the payday or payday. It's a fetter. It's a shackle for the feet. And it's something about the foot. Pus is foot. And when we're at Jesus' feet, it's that the disciples listening to their teacher's instructions are said to be at his feet. So we're at his feet, his pus. and you can say you're shackled there too. You're bound. That's a fetter. And the bands, of course, that's 11.99. We're going to look at that a little further down. But bound, chains, fetters, and you break the bands. And then this 11.97 is a desme. It just means a bundle. It's Matthew 13:30 when he's talking about the harvest, and he's talking about the tares and the wheat. He says, "Let them grow together unto the harvest, and in the time of the harvest I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into the barn." And that's us. That's the wheat. So you get the wheat and the tares. And when he first saw them coming up, the people says, "Look, we got tares coming up at the wheat. You want us to pull them up?" He says, "No, leave it there. Let them grow together." It's like us. We're out there in the world with the tares, and they'll be gathered together. Bind them in bundles. So the word bind here is the 12:10 deo. Bind them in bundles. When we're talking about bind and loose, and that's good. So here it is over here, 12:10. That's deo, bind, and there's a lot of verses here. There's over 40 some odd verses having to do with bind. And we're not going to read them all, but you got your word study concordance. You look up 12:10, and you'll see that bind whatsoever shall be this. When you talk about binding and loosing, he says in Matthew 18:18, he says, "Verily I say unto you, whatsoever you shall bind on the earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever you loose on the earth shall be loosed in heaven." So this is talking about declaring innocent and guilt, and preaching righteously, 18:18, and what you loose. So it's bind, dio, and loose is luo. So when you talk about bind and loose, these are the two main words, dio and luo. So we're going to dio, bind, and we're going to luo, loose. That's that. And then I had a whole bunch of other ones, but I found out, we'll go to 11.98. See, all of these are part of the the deal. So I'm gonna show you just how many there are. I can put them up. It's easier on eSword when I look at it, when you want to see words in a row. Like if you're looking at a words, not a word study, a dictionary. So when we go to the dictionary and we look up this 11, let's say 11, I think it started in 95, 1195. So yeah, so that's desmuo, okay? And then you got 96 is desmeo, and then you got 97 is desme. That's the bundle. We looked at that already. And this is the one we're looking up now, 1198, is captive, is desmios. Captive as bound in bonds, prisoner. And I went off on that a little bit. I took the prisoner and the captivity aspect, both in the New Testament and the Old Testament. And that's where I wound up spending most of my time this afternoon. So we'll look at those words, but I still want to look at the rest of these here. And there's 16 verses with this 1198. And it talks about, we'll get into it because these are, like I said, these are the two that I'm going to be looking at. And then 1199 would be desmon or desmos. It's a band or a ligament or a shackle of a prisoner, and a string. And there's 20 verses with that, desmos or desmon. And then 1200 desmol fulax. You can see fulax in there, and you know that's fulake or fulak is a keeper of the prisons, fulax, and of course the desmon or the desmos. So this is a keeper, a jailer is called a desmo fulax. So we got the word phulax in there. We'll look at that too. We got that on the list. So he's a jailer or a keeper of the prison, and that's 1200. And then 1201 is desmoterion, and that's the place. That would be the place of bondage or the dungeon or the prison. Desmoterion, and that's 1201. And it's like I said, there's so many of it. It goes like from 1195 all the way down to 1210. and desmotes. Desmotes is a prisoner or a captive. That's 1202. Desmotes is a prisoner or a captive, and there's 2 verses on that. We'll look at these down the road. And then 1203 is despotes. Like we probably get the word despot from that. But this despotes is a husband or an absolute ruler or a lord or a master, and we call him a despot. So let me see if I have the rest of these up here. 5, okay, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 1210 is the Dio. So it's like from 1195 all the way down to 1210, you'll find derivatives of this Dio here. So, but this one here I want to look at because this is where I spend most of my time here. And all right, yeah, there's the prison. Okay, and we'll look at that a little bit to see if because there's nothing really in the theological dictionary, as you can see. Desmophulax and the keeper of the prison told this saying to Paul, the magistrates have sent to let you go. Now therefore depart and go in peace. And I'm looking at all of these here, and there's no theological dictionary number for these. There's a theological dictionary number for the 1210, which is the main verb. So if you're looking at the theological dictionary there, you would look at volume 2, starting at page 60. And we I'm starting right now with this desmos, and that I found there is a theological dictionary on that, so we'll look at that too. So desmotes, prisoner. So I just wanted to make sure I gave you all the words, and then we'll just go back and look at the dictionary and see what it tells us. So all of these things are connected with prison, prisoner, and captivity. And I got some in the Old Testament I can give you, but first let me give you some more. In this New Testament, there's a series of words, 161, 162, 163, and 164 in the Greek. So we'll give you 161 is aikmalosia, aichmalosia, aikmalosia, and it means captivity. It's a feminine noun. There's 3 verses there, and it comes from 164, which is aikmalatos. The word aikme means a spear, and it's the same as malatos would be. This 259 comes from halosis, to be taken, or catching, or captured, to be taken. And this is one time in the Bible, this 259. I don't know if I have it up here, which verse it would be. 259. Let me look at it. 259. There's one time in the Bible. Oh, yes. Okay. But these, as natural brute beasts, made to be taken, halosis, and destroyed, speak evil of things that they understand not, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption. So that's 2 Peter 2:12. That's one time in the Bible. This word here is halosis. So I got that further down in the study too. I put it down there. So that's 161 and 162 is aikmalotuo. Aikmalotuo, and it means to lead captive, to make captive, or to take capture, to capture. And these are all in the Theological Dictionary, Volume 1, page 195 it starts on. So if you have that set of books, it's great to have them. So what I have now in front of me, I have Volume 2 in front of me. We'll read something from that. And this Volume 1, if we get a chance, we'll read from that on this particular study here, because I got into the captive study. And let's see, what's the other number here? 163 is Ike Malatizo. Ike Malatizo. And usually when you see tizo or izo or something like that, it's a verb. So this is the verb. And this is to bring into captivity or to lead away captive. And there's 3 verses on that. And we'll get into all of that. Just seeing what these 3 verses are here. Let me close this, and this. So these are the 4 that we're worried about. And there's not too many verses. There's 2, 4, 5. There's 8 verses with this Ike Malatizo type of theme going with the take captive, be led away captive, and all of that. And then it took me into the Old Testament words for this. Let me see how many I have here. All right, let me look at this. This is prisoner, captives, or captivity, and there's a few words on here. And when you're reading the Theological Dictionary, they'll give you this word here, and this would be osir. Osir comes from 631, which is asar, which means to bind or prison or to tie or a prisoner. And that's in the Theological Word Book. If you have the TWOT on 141, and you'll see all of this on that. We can't read all of this right now. I mean, we could, but a lot of it just happened to do with being binding and bondmen and prisoners and being bound and all of that. So, but there's a lot of stuff here. Read that in the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament. But we're looking for asir. Here it is. It would be asir, would be prisoner or a captive. The KJV, ASV, RSV translate similarly. Ugaritic, Arabic, Aramaic, 14 references appear in the Old Testament, of which 2 are marginal readings. You got Genesis 39, 20 and 22, talking about and Joseph's master took him and put him in the prison, a place where the king's prisoners are bound, and he was there in the prison, and the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did, he was the doer thereof. So, wherever Joseph wound up, he was respected. He was highly regarded. And we could look at all of these words, Genesis 39 and 20. You got the word prison in there. You got the word prisoners. You got the word bound in there. And you got the word prison. So there'd be like 3 different Strong's word numbers there. And the keeper of the prison, that's probably one word. 39:22. Wonder if I got it up here. 39:22. No. 39:22. I think it would be in one of these words, but it's not. Here it is. Here, 39, 20, and 22. It's this one here, and I just want to look at these words real quick. And Joseph's master took him and put him in the prison, and prison is Bayeth. Bayeth means house, and Sohar. That's a new one for me. I'll have to write that down. I'm just seeing it. Like I said, I just started really studying this prison thing today. So I'm getting words as I go along. And this is how I get the words, So I'm going to write this down, 5470 in the Hebrew, and it's Sohar, Cohar. I got that. I won't have to write everything else down there. So that's Sohar. There's 8 times that's in there. A place where the king's prisoners, and that's one we'll look at, were bound, Asar. So these two are related. This Asir, the prisoners are bound, Asar. And there, where was the prison? And then the keeper of the prison is 39, 22. And the keeper of the prison, the keeper is the Sar, oh, the prince, okay? The prince, the captain, the Sar of the Baith, of the Baith of the prison house. Sohar. So the Sar of the Sohar Bayah. Okay, that's good. And then, so that's the one word there. That's the Sar. And then this other one, 1546, is Galuth, Galuwth, Galuth, and it means captivity, and it comes from 1540, which is Galah, which means to uncover or discover, and captive, carry away, uncover, remove. So a lot of times you see they were taken away captive, they were removed, and that's TWOT 350. There's a lot of stuff on that. We're not going to go through all of this. Galut is captivity. So let me see. The Galah is the main verb. Galah, 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 and we'll get down to Galut. Oh, see, it's a lot of them. Okay. Galut, yeah, captivity, captive, or carried away captive. In the 15 occurrences in the feminine noun, Galut references is made. So, get back down to this. Lost my spot. References made to a group of captives, and you see all the verses here, Isaiah 20 and 4. The king of Syria led away the Egyptian prisoners and the Ethiopians captives. All right. A lot of verses having to do with captives. Captive, captive, captive. So all these all the same word, Jeremiah 29:20. Okay. And then, or a period of captivity variously specified as the captivity of Jehoiakim. And it talks about his captivity or our captivity in Ezekiel 32:21. He says, and it came to pass in the 12th year of our captivity, in the 10th month, in the 5th day of the month, that one that had escaped out of Jerusalem came unto me, saying, the city is smitten. So this is when he went to Nehemiah. Excuse me. Yeah. And he told them that the city was smitten. And then in Ezekiel 40:1, he says, in the 5th and 20th year of our captivity. So in the beginning of the year, the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year, after the city was smitten. So, you're talking like 586 BC. And then it says in the 25th year of our captivity. So you can figure out that it's, 25 years after 586 that he's talking about here. And there's a nice little reference point you can look at when you're looking at chronology in the Bible. And almost all of which refer to the captivity of Judah in Babylon. So that's what we got on that. And then another word here would be 7870 in the Hebrews is Sheba. And it's one time in the Bible, and it's TWOT 2340. And it has to do with restoration, to bring again. When you see in the Bible, a lot of times when I used to read the Bible before I was educated, I used to say he was when it says you're going to turn to captivity. I used to think that meant they were going to be brought back into captivity. But when you turn again the captivity, it means you're going to be set free. So that's basically when you see that phrase. So in Psalms 126:1, he says it's a song of degrees. He says when the Lord turned again the captivity of Zion, we were like them that dream. So turned again means you're released. So that's one time. That's what we call what I say. That was a hapex legomena. When a verse word is one time in the Bible, hapex legomena. Um, Galuth 1546. We looked at that. Okay, and then this other one here. This is Shebuth and Shebith. It's 44 times in the Bible. It's captivity, captives. All right. And it comes from 76:17, which is Shabbat, which means to carry or to take away, to take captive. All right, 23:11. I thought it had something to do with the other word, shu, which means to turn again. No, all right. What's this? Turned again. That's the 77:25. Turned again, shub. That's like the word that Jeremiah uses for repent. Turn me and I shall be turned. Shub, return. So that's what you see here when the Lord turned again. So he repented the captivity of Zion. All right. And that's some of the Hebrew words. But there's probably more. Like I said, I just started with this study, and we'll throw up that other one. What was it? 5470. I'll put it up here. 70 is a prison. Okay. And that's Sohar, prison. And we'll get back to all of this stuff eventually. There's not much in there. It comes from the same as 5469, which is Sahar, which means round or roundness. All right. So we're going to get back to, where was I with this? I'm going to go to this one, 164, and one, is that the one? No, I'm going to go to 1198. 1198 and 1199. These two here, and we're going to read a little bit in the Theological Dictionary of the New Testament, volume 2, starting on page 43, if you got it. And this is desmos and desmios. So the imprisonment, literally the fetter, to be bound, of the imprisoned apostle takes on a particular religious significance in phrases like desmios Christos. So he was Ephesians 3:1. Ephesians 3:1. Ephesians. Where is it? Oh, okay. Here it is, Ephesians 3:1. He says, for this cause I, Paul, the prisoner of Christ, of Jesus Christ, for you Gentiles. So he was a prisoner of Jesus, of Christ. And also in Philemon, I still don't know how to say it. Philemon 1 and 9, we got Philemon 1, Paul, a prisoner, who's a prisoner of Jesus Christ. And Timothy, our brother, unto Philemon, our dearly beloved and fellow laborer. And we know the story. This Onesimus was the slave that ran away, and Philemon was the guy who was the master, and you know the story. And in verse 9 he says, yet for love's sake I rather beseech thee, being such an one as Paul the aged, and now also a prisoner of Jesus Christ. So he knows who he belongs to here. And then in 2 Timothy 1:8, 2 Timothy 1:8, he says, be not thou therefore ashamed of the testimony of our Lord, nor of me his prisoner. So he keeps on saying that he's a prisoner of Christ. But be thou partaker of the afflictions of the gospel according to the power of God. So that's what we're supposed to be doing, being a partaker partaker of the afflictions, sum excuse me, sum kakopatheo. And we looked at this a couple of weeks ago. It's the word sum, of course, which means with or beside, and kakopatheo, to endure hardness, to suffer trouble. So that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to suffer trouble. And kakopathia comes from kako, of course, which means evil, and pathia, which is the pathos, or inordinate affection or lust. Well, kakopathia. And that's the pathos there. And then in Ephesians 4:1, he says, I, therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that you walk worthy of the vocation wherewith you are called. And you know, how are we going to do that? By suffering. And that's 4:1. And then 13, Philemon 13. Let me see if I got it here. There it is, Philemon 13. He says, whom I would have retained with me, that in thy stead he might have ministered unto me in the bonds of the gospel. So he's also in the bonds of the euangelio, the gospel. And then there can be no doubt that the actual imprisonment of Paul everywhere underlies the usage. But this real imprisonment is set in relation to Christ and the gospel. So we saw that in those verses. He's a prisoner for Jesus Christ, and he's in the bonds of the gospel. All right. And then, but you know, the real imprisonment is set in relation to Christ and the gospel. Christ is its author. He is the one for whose sake it is fulfilled, and also the one to whom human self-will should be offered in sacrifice. So, you know, I must decrease, he must increase. And then it says the whole fate of the prisoner is lifted up into the sphere of the Lord. So he's talking about in the Lord. That's what he's suffering, in the Lord. And there's some stuff here. This guy talks about Ritson suspects a dependence of the statements on the terminology of the mysteries. He adduces that katoke, the meaning of which is greatly contested. Let me see. Paul regards his imprisonment as a preparation for the final Christ mystery of Sun Christo Ina, which is Philippians 1:23. Philippians 1:23, if I have it here. Nope, Philippians 1:23. Nope. Let me look at it over here. Philippians 1:23. 23. For I am betwixt a strait, I am in a strait betwixt two, having a desire to depart and be with Christ, which is far better. Nevertheless, to abide in the flesh is more needful to you. So the final Christ mystery, Sun Christo Ina. Sun Christo Ina. Here it is, Sun Christo Ina. To be with Christ. That's what he means. What was it? I just lost my spot. 23. 22, 23. Sun Christo Ina. With Christ to be. All right, that's what that means, with Christ to be. So a decisive argument against this is that in Philippians 2:24, let's look at that real quick. Philippians 2:24. Nothing contradicts in the Bible. Philippians 2:24. But I trust in the Lord that I also myself shall come shortly. Okay. And then in Philemon 22, Paul does not treat his imprisonment as the penultimate stage. So he knows that he's not going to be in this prison forever. The whole complex of conceptions would be much more in keeping with sum, and the word we looked at, aikmalatos, and we'll look at that a little bit. He says, there we have a much stricter application of the image of the apostles' subjection to bondage to Christ. It should also be noted that there are links between the statements in Psalms 69, well, I had them here somewhere. I'll have to put them up again. Excuse me. Psalms. Oh, yeah, I think I had it on the other thing there. Psalms. So we'll look at it here anyway. Psalms 69, 33. Psalm 69, 33. 33 is, for the Lord heareth the poor, and despiseth not his prisoners. So his prisoners are this Ausir that we looked at. Ausir despises not his prisoners. And you got to look at this also in the, they looked at it in the Septuagint, 68:33. XXXM despises not his prisoners. There it is right there. Akira 134. It's praise. Okay, never mind. Anyway, and the link between that one and Isaiah 45. Isaiah 45. I said I just started studying it, so I'm still in study mode here. So that's why I'm jumping around and looking up Septuagints and looking up Hebrew letters and things like that. So Isaiah 45:13, it says, I have raised him up in righteousness. I will direct all his ways. He shall, speaking of Cyrus, he shall build my city, and he shall let go my captives. Not for price nor reward, saith the Lord of hosts. So I'm pretty sure it's about Cyrus, what he's going to do. What he prophesied that Cyrus would do like 100 and some odd years before Cyrus was even born. So this is the captives here is the word, we looked at that, galuth. So we looked at that. That's where we got that from, galuth. So he shall let go my captives. Basically, what that's saying. So that was a quick little thing on the desmos and the desmios and how it relates back into the Old Testament. So if you took these Greek letters, the Greek numbers here, and threw it back into the Septuagint, you would find that we'll put this here. We'll hit the binoculars, and we'll put Septuagint here, and we'll put these words, the letters 1198, and you'll see 4 matches in the Old Testament having to do with this word, desmios, bonds, prisoner. Ecclesiastes 4:14, he says, for out of prison he cometh to reign, whereas also is born, he that is born in his kingdom becometh poor. So out of prison, mine, beith, osa. So that's the prison house there. What's this? Mine. Apart. Okay, apart. That's what the mene, Mako, Turkle, and the part. Okay. So you got three different things here. And if you look at this in the Hebrew, Ecclesiastes 4:14, you'll see he's got all of them together here. Malak. Here we got 40 for the Mula. That's not it. Yeah. No. All right. Let me go. Let me stop doing this. I can't be jumping around like this with you guys because it confuses people. Sometimes it confuses me, and I know what I'm doing. All right. So we got that, and also the connected with this would be the okay, and here's another one here. Lamentations 3:34. He says to crush under his feet all the prisoners of the earth, and that's Osir. That's 615. Osir, bound, him that is captive, those who are bound, the prisoners. All right, and then Zechariah 9:11. So when you put these into the Septuagint, the Greek numbers, this is what you'll see. As for thee also, by thy blood of thy covenant, I have sent forth the prisoners out of the pit, wherein is no water. So the pit, mine, bore, cistern, dungeon. That's another one. 953. I have to look that up. 953 would be a pit or a hole or a cistern or a dungeon. I'm going to put that on my list. 69 verses for that one. Hold on a second. 60 by 953. Oh, 953. I'll just put that on the side. All right. So we're adding to the study. And then 912, Zechariah. 9:12, he says, turn you to the stronghold, ye prisoners of hope. Even today do I declare that I will render double unto thee. So the word stronghold here is oh, you prisoners. Here we go, prisoners. That's Osir. Turn you to the stronghold. Bitsaron, fortress, stronghold, Bitsaron. So, and then if you put 1199, you probably get nothing. Okay, 1199, that's the verse. Okay. So, that, and then this 164, we'll get back to that. 164, 64, and this is Luke 4:18. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because He has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty them that are bruised. So he's taking all these people out of the prison. Deliverance, that's aphesis, forgiveness, remission of sins, forgiveness. All the captives to set at liberty. I like this. Liberty, that's the same word. Aphesis. So they put to preach deliverance to the captives, and the word deliverance is aphesis, recovering of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty them that are bruised. So set at liberty is also aphesis. So they use deliverance and liberty for this one word, aphesis. So why do we not trust the English? Because we don't. We use the Greek. Aphesis is the forgiveness, remission of sins. And then, so in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, the prisoner of war is a miserable person who stands in special need of God's help. And you got Psalms 79:11. Psalms 79:11. 79:11. He says, let the sighing of the prisoner come before me, according to the greatness of thy power. Preserve thou those that are appointed to die, and render unto our neighbors sevenfold in their bosom their reproach, wherewith they have reproached thee, O Lord. So we, thy people and sheep of thy pasture, will give thee thanks forever. We will show forth thy praise to all generations. So the prisoner here, let the sighing of the prisoner, and that's what we're in prison, we're sighing. The sighing, anaka, sighing of the prisoner. We just looked at that, or seer, come before thee. So we all need help. We having been swallowed up by a terrible enemy. Luke 21:24. Luke 21:24. Luke 21. Where am I? There we go. Luke 21:24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden out of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And this is a verse that pinges on all of prophecy, all of eschatology. This is a key verse in understanding prophecy and eschatology. And we know what this means. They shall fall by the edge. Who shall fall? Jerusalem. Israel shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive. Aikmalatidzo is the verb to bring into captivity. Aikmalatidzo. And into all nations, all the ethnos. Is that ethnos? Yes, all the Gentiles. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down, pateo, to tread down, to trample, and that's been happening for over 2,500 years of the Gentiles until what? The times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And we already figured out when that is. When were they not trodden down of the Gentiles? In 1967. I mean, up until then, they were trodden down. Everybody went through Israel to get to where they had to go. If you wanted to go from Egypt to Babylon, you went through Israel. If you want to go from Babylon to Egypt, you went through Israel. And they were trodden down of the Gentiles. And of course, we know the last Gentiles to be kicked out of Jerusalem were the Jordanians in the Six-Day War in 1967. So, when it talks about this is the Gentile, this is the generation, this generation shall not fast until all these things be fulfilled. This is the generation it's talking about, the generation we're in now. It's not a past generation. This is the generation we're in right now. And when you see these things come to pass, then look up and lift your head up, for your redemption draweth nigh. It's at the door. So a little side study over there. And then Revelation 13:10, Revelation 13:10. All has to do with this word here, Ike Malatidzo, Ike Malak something. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity, and he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So you lead into captivity, Ike Malosia, you will go into Ike Malosia. So, the natural disaster of the exile made the Ike Malosia of Zion a destiny that was particularly understood in religious terms. And we just looked at Psalms 26:1. Let me put up this 78:70, make it quicker. It is, when the Lord turned again the captivity of Zion, we were like them that dream. It's only a dream. Hence the Cheruse Aikmalatos Ephesus. So the turning again of the captivity is one of the tasks of the messenger in Isaiah 61 and 1. And that's the same as Luke 4:8. So Isaiah 61, let's see if I can get a cross reference here. Isaiah 61 and 1 should be popping up here somewhere. No. Making a liar out of me here. Isaiah 61. We know what it is. Isaiah 61 and 1. Yeah, 61. I don't know why it didn't pop up there. All right. The Spirit of God is upon me because the Lord had anointed me to preach good tidings to the meek. Same thing as in Luke 4:18. He had sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and opening of the prison to them that are bound. Let me put these side by side here. And it's very little difference. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. Because the Lord hath anointed me to preach, because the Lord hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor, the good tidings unto the meek, same things. He has sent me to bind up, he sent me to heal the brokenhearted, and to preach deliverance to the captives, and to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. So, and recovery of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty them that are bruised. It's basically the same thought there. But these words here, anointing me to bind up, kabash, to saddle, to tie, to bind. Okay, that's interesting. Kabash, to saddle, to bind on, to bind, to restrain, to be bound up. Yeah, let me put that over there too. 2280. It's about 33 verses on that one. And then bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty. Liberty is a Neurohr. Liberty, free run, liberty. To who? To the captives. And that's Shabbat. We looked at that. To carry away, take captive, to take captive, Shabbat. And the open of the prison. Prison is Pekakoa. Opening of the prison, one time in the Bible, and the opening of the eyes. That's the same thing. To set at least to recover your sight to the blind, you can say. That's why they used opening of the prison and the opening of the eyes when they translated it into the Luke 4:18. They used the recovering of sight to the blind. Pekakoa comes from pakak, which means to open the eyes. So that's good. I like the way they translated that in Luke 4:18, because you don't see that in the Isaiah 61 translation. Excuse me, the English. You don't see something about recovering the sight to the blind, but that's in here in the word. Proclaim liberty. Pekakoa, where was it? I just saw it. There is a Pekakoa. Pekoak. Opening of the prison. It's actually the opening of the eyes, or recovering sight to the blind, opening the eyes. So that's good that they translated that in Luke 4:18 as recovering sight to the blind. That's why it's in there, and it's not, you don't see it in the English in Isaiah 61, but it's there. That's why we don't trust the English. See? Opening of the prison actually means to recovering sight to the blind. So that's what that phrase means there. Now we know that. Okay. So in the same way, visiting prisoners is one of the duties of discipleship and the exercise of love, according to Matthew 25:36. And we might have looked at this in the 1199. Matthew 25:36. 36. Matthew 25, 36. 6. So naked, and you clothed me, and he said, I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. So whether that's literal, it's not one of our duties, but if we're looking at, the believers or today, and we're taking care of them, we're clothing them, and we're clothing them with Jesus. We're putting on enduo, putting on the clothes. Sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, which is philake. We'll look at that too. That's on our list. And you visited me. Philake comes from philasso, which means to keep or to observe or to guard. So that's what they look. When you keep a prison, it's philasso and philake. It's the same thing. Philasso, philase. And also in Hebrews 10, 34, probably 10:34. So, okay. For you had compassion on me and my bonds, and took joyfully the spoiling of your goods, knowing in yourselves that you have in heaven a better and an enduring substance. So you took compassion on me in my desmon. And then 13:3. As we do, we look out for each other. 13:3 in our bonds. I didn't think this was going to go this way, but it's turning out to be pretty good for me. 13:3. He says, remember them that are in bonds, as bound with them, and them which suffer adversity, as being yourselves also in the body. So, he's not just talking about, like, he was physically in prison. He was bound in prison, sure. Peter was bound in prison, sure, but he's talking about the bonds here. We're in bonds. We're sitting here in front of our computers, and we're in bonds, actually. So 1198. Desmios, we're prisoners of Christ. Bound with them. Oh, that's the one. That's a good one. Bound with them. I think we looked at this last week or the week before. Sundeo, everything with sun, with deo. Bound with, to be bound with, one time in the Bible. Hapex legamena, sundeo, to bound with. I like that one. And then, so in the Old Testament, the thought of imprisonment is always self-evidently linked with prayer for liberation, and we're always praying to be delivered. The same principle is illustrated by the rabbinic anecdote about the great sinner who gained merit by helping a prisoner to freedom. That's in some book somewhere. All right. And Josephus journeys to Rome to secure the liberation of imprisoned priests. He was like a double agent, Josephus. He was on both sides. He was on the Jew side and he was on the Roman side. So you can read a little bit about him in his book, Josephus, to secure the liberation of imprisoned priests. And in the New Testament, too, the freeing of prisoners is sought so earnestly that sometimes it is attributed to a divine miracle. I might have these up here already. Divine miracle. Acts, there it is, Acts 5:19. But the angel of the Lord by night opened the prison doors and brought them forth and said, go, stand and speak in the temple to the people all the words of this life. So they were physically bound. And then when they were in the prison, he says in 5:17, then the high priest rose up and all that were with him, which is the sect of the Sadducees, and were filled with indignation. And they laid hands on the apostles and put them in the common prison. Put them in the common prison. So common is demosios. That's 12:19. Demosios. Prison. 5084. This is a new one for me. 5084. Let me look at that real quick. Take a little side trip over here. 5084. And this would be, oh yeah, Theological Dictionary 8, 146. Oh, it's part of Teresis. Okay. Now I know where it is. Okay. And they laid hands on them and put them in hold unto the next day, for it was now eventide. And they laid hands on the apostles and put them in the common prison. And then 1 Corinthians 7:19, circumcision is nothing and uncircumcision is nothing but the keeping of the commandments of God. So the keeping, hold, prison, and keeping, all this teresis comes from tereo, which means to keep or to reserve or to observe. We're to keep the commandments, to watch over the commandments. It doesn't necessarily mean that we can do all of them. We're sinners and we're going to sin, but we're going to keep them, which means I may not be able to do them all, but I'm going to make sure that they're there and we know that they're there. That's what keeping them is. It's not we're going to sin, so that's not what keeping is. Keeping is they're there and we're going to watch over them. We're going to keep them. We're going to make sure they're preserved, reserved, and it convicts us. So and then so 5084. Let me write that down. 5084. Put that on the side. There we go. And then Acts 12:7. When Peter was in prison, physically in prison. Let me see. In 12:5, he says, Peter therefore was kept in prison. Physical prison, 54:38. That's the phylake. But had prayer, okay. You see. But prayer was made without ceasing of the church of God, church unto God for him. And when Herod would have brought him forth, the same night Peter was sleeping between two soldiers, bound with two chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison. And the keepers, he was in the prison. I see that when Herod brought forth the same night, of sleeping between two soldiers, bound is dio, with two chains. We looked at chains. That's the halusis, that's the chain, the bonds. And the keepers, the phylaks, which is the keepers of the philasso, of the prison of the phylake. Wow, we got all the words in here. We got bound, we got keeper, we got phylaks, and then kept. Tereo. Look at that. We got tereo, and we got the prison, phylake. We got all three of them there. And then Acts 16. Well, did I finish reading this? No, let me get down to the verse we're looking at. I mean, all those words are in the previous verses, but the one we're looking for is, and behold, the angel of the Lord came upon him, and a light shined in the prison, and he smote Peter on the side. He said, "Wake up, arise, get up quickly." And the chains fell off from his hands. That's great. So, can you say that because of the prayer? He was going to get freed anyway, but they were still praying. They're probably saying, "Our prayers did it." 16:26, and then 16:26, talking about Paul. And at midnight, Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God, and the prisoners heard them. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened and everyone's bands were loosed. So, do you think it was their prayers that did it, or it was going to happen anyway? And suddenly there was a great earthquake. The foundations of the prison, desmoterion, was shaken, and immediately the doors were opened. The thura, I am the door. The thura were opened, and everyone's bands, desmon, was loosed. 447. That's anime, loose, pover. So So, and it's the subject, and is made an object of prayer. So, there's nothing wrong with praying for things like that. We pray for God's will to be done. If it's your will, open that prison. And guess what? The prison opened. So it really wasn't your prayers that did it. It was going to be opened up anyway. And the Philemon 22 says, "But withal prepare me also a lodging, for I trust that through your prayers I shall be given unto you." And so he's just talking about through the prayers. Some people believe in the power of prayer. Jesus tells us to pray constantly. It's one phrase: pray constantly. So we ought to pray, but what are we to pray for? At any rate, Paul can raise the question whether Luce kai Christo is not preferred. In Philippians 1:23, Philippians 1:23. For I am in a strait betwixt two, having a desire to depart and to be with Christ, which is far better. Nevertheless, to abide in the flesh is more needful for you. So, on the other hand, a new outlook arises when the idea of merit comes to be associated with martyrdom. And everybody wanted to be a martyr, Thus, Ignatius passionately declines liberation. So, if you're in prison, or if you're being persecuted for being a Christian, don't ever say, I'm not, I am. Persecute me more. I'd have to go to, it's not in here, I'd have to go to a book where Ignatius talks about that. So the figurative use here, the thought of imprisonment in war is carried over into the inner moral and religious struggle of man and for man. This use is not found in the Old Testament. Talking about prisons in the Old Testament, Jeremiah 16 and 6. 16 and 6. Both the great and the small shall die in this land. They shall not be buried, neither shall men lament them, nor cut themselves, nor make themselves bald for them. 16, excuse me, that's why it didn't make much sense to me. Behold, I will send for many fishers, saith the Lord, and they shall fish them, and after will I send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rock. So that imagery is also in Mark 1. Let me see if I can get this here. Mark 1:17. Nope, let me do it this way. Mark 1:17. Come after me, and I will make you fishers of men. It has nothing to do with the military service, and is therefore quite different. Okay, so he's just pointing out that these two verses have nothing to do with that. So in the New Testament, it occurs only in Paul, who shows a partiality for military images. Paul applies it in different ways to those who lead astray. 2 Timothy 3:6. 2 Timothy 3:6. He says, "For this sort are they which creep into houses and lead a captive silly woman laden with lusts, led away with diverse lusts." Lead captive. Aik malatuo. To express subjection to sin. So that's what they are. They're subjected to sin. And then in Romans 7:23, He says, but I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind and bringing in me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. And of course, the famous line, "O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death?" Captivity, bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members, but also along the lines of Romans 7:6. Romans 7:6, he says, but we are now delivered from the law, that being dead wherein we were held, that we should serve in newness of spirit and not in the oldness of the letter. I got out of a driving ticket once when I used to the letter and the spirit of the law. I ran a stop sign. I didn't actually run it. I mean, I obeyed the spirit of the law, but not the letter of the law. So the letter of the law tells you come to a complete and full stop before the sign and proceed with caution. Whereas most of us know that we approach with caution, we slow down real slow, and we proceed. But the spirit of the law is there. So when the cop pulled me over, I said, look, I didn't obey the letter of the law, but I obeyed the spirit of the law. And I explained the difference between the letter and the spirit. He said, you know what, get out of here. He told me to go. So let me see, where was I? 7 to illustrate the subjection of our thoughts to Christ. So 2 Corinthians 10:5. 2 Corinthians 10:5. Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Well, that's nice. And having in a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. So that's bringing into captivity. It's being obedient, right? Bringing into captivity. Ike Malotizo. So you could say that's obedience. To be every thought to the obedience of Christ. The hupakue. We looked at that. We looked at hupakue last week. We did a little bit on coming and also following. Hupakuo is follow. This is hupakoe. And then hupakuo is obey. So when if you say obey and hear, they're the same thing. Akuo and hupakuo. Because if you hear, you obey. Hear and obey. 2 Corinthians 10:5, okay, and also expresses the rejection of spirits to Christ in Ephesians 4:8. Ephesians 4:8. 4:8, he says, wherefore he saith, when he ascended up on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts unto men. Led captivity captive. Ike Malatuo, Ike Malosia. I love the way they put these words together. So, and that's quoting Psalms 68. Let me see if I can get a cross-reference. There it is, right next to it. Usually that's what happens when you get a cross-reference. It comes right next to it. Psalms 68:18 is the same thing as Ephesians 4:8. Thou hast ascended on high, thou hast led captivity, Shebe, captive, Shabbat, captivity captive. Thou hast received gifts for men, yea, for the rebellious, and also that the Lord God might dwell among them. Shebe, I got these words down here, right? 76:28. I'll put them down here. 7628, and I got this one. I know now. 7617. I looked at them already. So, and then the same figurative use is found in the Septuagint. We can't go there. Judith 16:9. It occurs occasionally in the post-apostolic writings. Ignatius refers to an imprisonment by the somebody else. Let me see. In prison. So, in connection with this metaphorical use of Ike Malatizo, we should also note the description of Paul's individual helpers as soon. And we know what soon is, right? We know what's coming. Somebody with. Romans 16:7. Get this out of here. Romans 16:7. 7, yeah, 16:7. He says, "Salute Andronicus, Junior, my kinsmen, my fellow prisoners, who are of note among the apostles, who also were in Christ before me." Fellow prisoners, 46:89. Sun aikmalatos. Let me write that down. Hold on. Do I have that? Nope. Let me put it 48, 69. S-U-N. I'll just put S-U-N. Fellow prisoner. Let me look at it here. 4869. 4869. See how many verses we got. We got 3 verses. Aristarchus, my fellow prisoner, saluteth you, and Marcus, sister's son to Barnabas, touching whom ye received commandments. If ye come unto him, if he come unto you, receive him. There salute Epaphras, my fellow prisoner in Christ. So he's saluting all these fellow prisoners here. Well, that's good. A fellow prisoner. You can't get nothing on that. Okay. I like that. Soon